So what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the worst 10 brawlers in the game right now. So going from the 10th worst all the way to the very worst, starting off with Griff/Meg. So I feel like it's actually pretty hard to make a top worst brawlers video right now, because a lot of the really bad brawlers actually got a buff with like hypercharges, you know, like Jackie, for example, Bull. So I think Griff and Meg are kind of secretly going down into the bottom 15, bottom 10. Main reason being because Griff, I think, is only really used to break open some maps to counter the likes of Lou, Squeak, in that kind of way. You know, I've only really seen him picked a handful of times in Hot Zone and Duel and Beetles, and that was even before the buffs to some other brawlers. For me, whenever I face Griff, I just feel like he's in really easy matchup. His super doesn't really hit as hard anymore. Again, he's only really used, in my opinion, to break open a map and also just get some zone percentage. The same goes with Meg. I feel like Meg is very overrated sometimes. I think she's so easy to take down, and she just doesn't have the presence anymore. So next, as the 9th worst brawler in the game right now, we have Bo. So Bo is starting to creep down the meta. In my opinion, I actually like playing Bo. There's a lot of secret matchups, which is pretty good against, you know, like B, for example, or just in Hot Zone is pretty underrated. But still, it's a very niche market, which Bo is actually good in. Other than that, he gets ran over too easily. There's just so many different brawlers that can take him down really quickly, and more often than not, there's other brawlers that have better utility. You know, for example, he hasn't really got the best gadgets right now, so maybe if his gadgets got some love, he'll be able to be a little bit better. But overall, there's just better brawlers that do his job in the meta. So next up is the 8th worst brawler in the game right now. I went with Janet. So I know it's pretty painful to hear, but Janet has gone from one of the best to the very worst. But in my opinion, I just think she doesn't really have too much of a place right now in the meta. I think the only reason why she's ever really been good is because of that gadget. Being able to scout the grass can be really good on maps like Infinite Doom, and especially to counter brawlers like Tara. But still, I'd rather just go a different counter to Tara, like Sandy, for example, who can be a much better asset overall. And it just takes so long to get her super now. It is just pretty frightening as a Janet to face off against so much aggression in this meta. So next up is the 7th worst brawler in the game right now. I went with a BB. So hear me out. I know a lot of you BB mains are going to be crying, but for me, BB has got a lot worse. So one of the main reasons why she's got worse is because of her healing gadget. So the healing gadget actually gets less value. So you see this common theme in this update, because they didn't buff a lot of the values in terms of gadgets and star powers when they've got some kind of base value with it. And with BB, she gets less healing essentially. So for me, you can't just press the gadget and run into people now. It's not really the same anymore. And the thing about BB as well, heist has been removed, so that's another negative. And then the third negative, of course, is that any type of cancellation just destroys BB. And we know what it's like. Very comparable to brawlers like Mortis. You get cancelled out too easily. So many brawlers that have gadgets and supers that can just tear her down, and especially since the 4th gadget gear, I feel like she's getting countered even more. So next up, as the 6th worst brawler in the game right now, we have Chester. So briefly, Chester was actually probably like a top 5 brawler in the meta because of that glitch with his skin. But ever since that got fixed, he's straight back down into the bottom 10 in my opinion. So Chester, I feel like he has some usage in terms of Brawl. You can get a lot of value just because there's a lot of tanks, but still, he's not really going to be putting out the damage that you really need in my opinion. His supers as well are pretty lackluster in my opinion. I think that as soon as people learn his mechanics, his supers and whatever else, he hasn't really had the same potential in my opinion. So if Chester was ever to become somewhat meta, I'd like some small buffs to his super perhaps, but for now, he doesn't really have a place. So next up, as the 5th worst brawler in the game right now, I went with Edgar. So I know there's going to be at least 10 Edgar fans in the comments trying to protest that, you know, pros just don't know how to use Edgar. Apparently, I've seen that so many times on Reddit, but the facts are, Edgar's just never used in competitive for the main reason that he gets countered so easily. So I know he got a brand new gadget gear, which will definitely help him out with Let's Fly, but still, heist has been removed. His favorite maps like Pit Stop and Hot Potato have been removed. Well, they're back in at the weekend, but you get what I mean. It's not actually a part of the proper rotation, and I still feel like it's so easy to take down a lot of the times. He did receive another HP buff, but that's just not going to be enough to push him too much in the meta. But as I said, he still has his niche. Sometimes he can be played in split as well, and can be played on the weekend events in Heist. So next up, as the 4th worst brawler in the game right now, we have Hank. So Hank, I've only had a few kind of moments to play with him and play against him. I actually think he's improved. He might not even be in the bottom 10 in my opinion, but for now I'm going to put him as 4 because I feel like I've not had enough time to test it. But recently Hank received another 2 buffs, I think, to his HP and definitely his damage. He actually does quite a lot of damage right now. I'm trying to say that he's one of the worst brawlers in the game, but I feel like he could go away from the top 10. But anyways, for now, he's still, a lot of the times, there's a lot of cancellation features as well. Whilst you're trying to build up his bubble for 3 seconds, right, and then you just have some type of gadget or super that breaks his bubble, and then you've got to wait another 3 seconds to deal any meaningful damage. So for me, he's still sometimes easily countered, and his super's one of the worst in the game. So next up, as the 3rd worst brawler in the game right now, we have Doug. So ever since the change to all the values, I played Doug for about 30 minutes, and I just feel like Doug's got worse somehow. I don't know why. It just feels like the healing doesn't actually heal as much as I want. I don't know if they didn't actually buff it or not, or I'm just going crazy, but I just feel like you get less value with his healing overall right now. And as you guys know, Doug is literally just a worse version of Jackie at the moment. There's no way to close down the opponents. There are some sneaky strategies, I think, if you want to build some good synergy and to catch the opponents off guard. But still, I feel like it takes a very specific composition against another specific composition that the enemy has to have basically no hard counter, and especially we're in a Shelly meta, Tara meta, that's basically impossible to get the right matchup with Doug. He did recently receive a nice change to his super as well, where you get 100% of your HP back, but still, I feel like it's just so easy to predict where he's going to respawn. So Doug definitely is one of the worst right now. So next up, as the 2nd worst brawler in the game right now, we still have a Gail. So Gail has been really bad for a long time now, which I don't really mind too much, just because a Gale meta is actually pretty toxic because he can shut down so many brawlers with his super and the stun. But still, he's can be underrated in some scenarios. Maybe some open maps you can use the slow start power to get some good value, and you know, especially if some other tank counters like Ems, Tara, Shelly are banned, which are very rare, but if they are, maybe he's the next go-to in terms of tank counters. But overall, there's still probably like 5 or 6 brawlers that are over him right now, especially with even like Spike, for example, getting his hypercharge. Otis coming back to the meta. There's just better brawlers that do his job better. And finally, moving on to the best brawler, worst brawler in the game, it's Frank. So do we need to speak about how bad Frank is right now? I must have said this about 20 times now. I'm not too sure why they're not buffing Frank, doing something with Frank. He's basically got extra HP, right? But that's not really an actual buff. I don't know, there's just something needs to change with Frank without him breaking lower ladder. I'm not too sure what. Maybe like a new gadget, maybe a new gear or something like that. Or even he could have the next hypercharge, because we've seen that with some of the worst brawlers in the game, like Bull and Jackie. Them receiving a hypercharge actually made him a little bit better. Still, Frank, absolutely terrible. He's so unusable. Let me know down in the comment section below who you think are the worst 10 brawlers in the game. I actually kind of struggled with this because I feel like you can still use a lot of these brawlers except for Frank. So yeah, let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.